There was a lot of good shit said in the first two parts that are going to get lost if you only watch this part. But hey, we're working on it. We're talking about the history of the N-bomb, the N-word. And if you want to see the previous, what I said previously, you have to watch. Because I'm not going to go back and reread it all. So if you want to hear the beginning parts, go watch the previous videos. But it's basically the idea that the N-word has any power back. They fucked with the last one. Yep. The N-word has any power at all is by design. It's a way of creating division. Black people have been trained to think that they should get upset if this word is said. Totally not censorship, not at all. Don't. Why would you even say such a crazy conspiracy theory? No such thing as censorship. There's no such thing as Team Jorge. There's no such thing as Act IL. And if you get information from Wikipedia, that's just crazy. Why would you ever do that? Why would you get your information from the source that they want you to get it from? Should I be watching Alex Jones's videos and then regurgitating everything he says? Was that what I should do? Jake Shields was just on Alex Jones's show, which is interesting. And Alex is sort of talking, like Alex is still under this idea that Trump is a good guy, but the system is working against him. And Alex Jones hasn't, Alex should have been the meest, opponent to Israel that's existed for years. He should have been that guy, but he wasn't. And there's a reason for it. You guys just don't understand that you're being manipulated from every angle. But there's always this one.
The Jews, Mr. Jones, have inflicted tremendous
Sounds
harm
like it's a
upon
Jew
the
saying
United
it.
Well, let me ask you a question. From your perspective, should the Jews be gotten rid of?
Yes, they should. In every country.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going
to stop you. I don't want you to talk.
I am Jewish.
There you go. There you go. Oops, I stepped on a worm. I think this is a stick. But for you to think that like any of the information you're getting is the 100% truth, and there's there's no other alternative, and if you do think differently, then something's wrong. Like, this is all by design. Just like black people responding to the N-word, the fact that I have to say the N-word, the fact that they've created such a negative taboo around the word that it gives it the power it needs. If you can't say the word, it must be bad, right? And then if somebody does say it, you should respond, because it's bad. According to Webster, it's the most offensive word in the English language. The K word is worse. I should read that too. But Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary describes the term as perhaps the most offensive an inflammatory racial slur in English. Basically, if you hear it, you're supposed to respond. The Oxford Dictionary writes that this word is one of the most controversial in English and is liable to be considered offensive or taboo in almost all contexts, even when used as a self-description. Yeah, it should be, right? At the trial of O.J. Simpson, that's the first thing we're going to bring up here. Boy, that's not setting up the mind to think in a certain way, is it? Prosecutor Chris Darden referred to it as the filthiest, dirtiest, nastiest word in the English language. Yeah. Jesus. Intra-group usage has been criticized by some contemporary Black American authors, a group of them, the eradicationists, calling for a total abandonment of its usage, even under the variant nigga, which they see as contributing to the construction of an identity founded on self-hate. It's what it is. That is what it is. In wider society, yeah, but see, again, do the eradicationists tell the truth about it? Tell the truth about how it was weaponized by them to distract us from them? You know, it's such a, you know, one of the cards that's always in the back pocket of the system when they need a good distraction is taking down statues of you know, Southern generals and shit like that. Because those motherfuckers still exist all over the place. Suddenly, one gets taken down, and you have white people coming out of the woodworks acting like it's their grandfather's statue or some shit. They don't even know the fucking guy. They don't even live in the area, but they're standing like, you can't erase history. You're right, you can't. But you can take down the monuments to the slavery. Like, to think that everyone's taxes are taken to pay for the maintenance and keep up of a statue. Like, I'd say picture it, like, imagine if it was the other way around, but you can't. You have to imagine it, because there is no example of it that exists, because it would bother people so much. If there was some black dude that advocated the killing of white people and enslaving them and all this other shit, and people in a community that you know, a large, diverse community decided to make a statue to this guy, white people would have such an issue with it. I don't think my tax dollars should go to upkeep to this guy who, you know, called for the killing of white people and blah, blah, blah. Look at fucking Elijah Muhammad. Farrakhan. Imagine if somebody erected a Farrakhan statue in a you know, a neighborhood where it was like half and half. It would be such a fucking issue. Especially if it was like a downtown or something. But they know they can always distract us, right? They know some real bad shit can be going down Israel-wise. And they just need to say, we're going to take down a statue, and everybody just gets distracted immediately. I keep thinking they're going to do it again here soon. That was my last prediction, was that it was going to happen soon. I don't know when, but they're going to need a distraction, and especially now. It's much more likely to happen now that all this... Jeffrey Epstein? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Especially since all that bullshit's really making everyone look bad. Trump doesn't even look confident when he's doing this. Trump's usually a pretty confident liar. He looks like he's struggling his way through this. Like he's fucking his way through this. And the things that he's saying, it's just unfucking unimaginably stupid. Anyway, let's see. In Wilder's Society, the inclusion of the word N-bomb in classic works of literature, as Mark Twain's 1884 book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and in more recent cultural productions such as Quentin Tarantino's 1994 film Pulp Fiction and his 2012 film Django Unchained, has sparked controversy and an ongoing debate. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, let's see. Quentin Jerome Tarantino was born in Knoxville, Tennessee on March 27, 1963, the only child of Connie McHugh and aspiring actor Tony Tarantino, who left the family before his son's birth. He is claimed to have Cherokee ancestry through his mother, who was also Irish in descent, while his father was Italian American. He was named in part after Quint Asper, Burt Reynolds' character in the TV series Gunsmoke. Fucking weirdo with his foot fetish. Look at, man, they are absolutely do not want us talking about this today, do they? 12 minutes in and we have 3 viewers. The word N-bomb has also been historically used to designate, quote, any person considered to be of low social status. See, that's the part where they don't want to acknowledge it. It's not racial. Anybody can be called that. And it's always funny to call white people that, like in the middle of an argument. Because they'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm white. Showing you how racist they are. 99.9999999% of the time you call a white person an N-bomb, they're going to be like, dude, I'm white. What are you talking about? In some cases, with awareness of the word's offensive connotation, but without intention to cause offense, it can refer to a victim of prejudice likened to that endured by African Americans, as in John Lennon's 1972 song, Woman is the N-bomb of the world. What are the lyrics to this motherfucker? Let's see. Composition of the issues, popular culture, composition. Is it gonna not give me the lyrics? I want the lyrics, man. John Lennon, I mean, I'm sure he's not considered Jay, but his last name is Lennon, and look at his fucking face. You're telling me that guy's not a J, huh? He was English. John Winston Lennon was born on October 9th, 1940, at Liverpool Maternity Hospital, the only child of Alfred and Julia Lennon. Alfred was a merchant seaman of Irish descent who was away at the time of his son's birth. His parents named him John Winston Lennon after his paternal grandfather, John Jack Lennon, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill. His father was often away from home, but sent regular paychecks to the address where Lennon lived with his mother. The checks stopped when he went absent without leave in February of '44. When he eventually came home, 6 months later, he offered to look after the family, but Julia, by then pregnant with another man's child, rejected the idea. Motherfucker was gone for a few months. Weird how we're not getting her backstory. Let's see. Julia Lennon was the mother of an English musician who was born during her marriage to Alfred Lennon. Again, interesting look. I don't know if you saw it. Background. Julia Stanley, later known by her family as Judy. Julia was known as Judy? Her mother, Anne Jane Millward, gave birth to a boy and then a girl, both of whom died shortly after birth. She then had Mary, known as Mimi, 1906 to 1991, Elizabeth Mater, 1908 to 1976, Anne Nanny, 1911 to 1988, and Julia Judy, 1914 to 1958, and Harriet Harry, 1916 to 1972. That's a lot of kids. John Lennon would later comment that the Stanley girls were 5 fantastic, strong, beautiful, and intelligent women. Their father, George Ernest Stanley, retired from the Merchant Navy and found a job with the Liverpool Glasgow Salvage Association as an insurance investigator. He moved his family to the suburb of Wavertree, where they lived in a small blah, 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 blah. Why aren't they telling us about her background? That's strange. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. I went back too far. Oh, look, dude, we got up to 4. I am really rolling today. 3rd attempt at the video. Usually by the 3rd attempt, we can squeak through. Fuck it, I don't feel like resetting. I always do this shit live so that the knowledge is shared, but it's for my own personal benefit. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. All right, etymology and history. Early use. The word N-bomb, then spelled in English N-E-G-E-R or N-I-G-E-R, appeared in the 16th century as an adoption of the French negre, N-E-G-R-E, itself from Spanish negro. They go back to the Latin adjective N-I-G-E-R, meaning black. It's so stupid. It really is stupid. In its original English language usage, I mean, again, so do you think there's this same sort of thing for each of the words in its original English language usage? You think those all have that same sort of backstory? Well, that word was first used in the blah, blah, like, come on. In its original English usage, N-I-G-G-E-R, also spelled N-I-G-E-R, was a word for a dark-skinned individual. The earliest known published use of the term dates from 1574 in a work alluding to the Nigers of Aethiop bearing witness, and W-I-T-N-E-S. Is that witness? Is that what it's supposed to be? The Nigers of Aethiop bearing witness, I guess. Ancient Ethiopia first appears as a geographical term in the classic documents in reference to the skin color of the inhabitants of the Upper Nile in northern Sudan and areas surrounding and areas south of the Sahara and of certain areas of Asia. Its earliest mention is in the works of Homer, twice in the Iliad and 3 times in the Odyssey. The Greek historian Herodotus used the appellation to refer to regions south of Egypt when describing so it's Ethiopians, but it's Aethiopians. Aethiopians. Most commonly, Nubia. Likewise, the Hebrew term Cushi is derived from Cushite. Despite this, I guess we're not getting any explanation of that. Most commonly, despite this, the Byzantine Greeks also referred to the Exumites as Ethiopians, and Negus Izana, conqueror of the Meroe, took on the title King of Ethiopia. Prior to the rise of the medieval Ethiopian Empire, the ancient Libyans, North African Berbers, were also called White Aethiopians by contemporary Greek sources. That's strange. According to the Oxford Dictionary, the first derogatory use of the term nigger was recorded 2 centuries later in 1775. Wow, what a coincidence. Birth of a nation. Jesus Christ. In the colonial America of 1619, John Rolfe used negars in describing the African slaves shipped to the Virginia colony. Such a goofy ass, impossible narrative that we all just accept and don't think twice about how ridiculous it actually sounds. Later, American English spellings neger and neggar prevailed in New York under the Dutch, and in metropolitan Philadelphia's Moravian and Pennsylvania Dutch communities. The African burial ground in New York City originally was known by the Dutch name Begraafplaats. Van D Neger, Cemetery of the Negro. The African burial ground. You ever heard about this shit before? The African Burial Ground National Monument is a monument at Duane Street and African Burial Ground Way, Elk Street, in the Civic Center section of Lower Manhattan, New York City. Its main building is the Ted Weiss Federal Building at 290 Broadway. The site contains the remains of more than 419 Africans buried during the late 17th and 18th centuries in a portion of what was the largest colonial area cemetery for people of African descent. Some free, most enslaved. I thought that wasn't a thing up in the New York area. Historians estimate that there may have been as many as 10,000 to 20,000 burials in what was called the Negroes' Burial Ground in the 18th century. What? In the middle of the area where, of course, all these giant buildings existed. The 5 to 6 acre site's excavation and study was called the most important historic urban archaeological project in the United States. The burial ground site is New York's earliest known African American cemetery. Studies show an estimated 15,000 African people were buried there. Where did they come from? I mean, if you look at the populations of the area at the time that they're saying, then so many of them would have had to have been brought in. And when you think about what you think 1700s America looks like, what transportation mechanisms are they using? I mean, it would take you all day to go a few miles back in the day. 20 miles or so? That would be an all-day fucking trip. And yet we're supposed to believe that people were just able to travel back then like it was nothing, like they can today. The discovery highlighted the forgotten history of enslaved Africans in the colonial and federal New York City. I had no idea. Did you ever hear about that? Who were integral in its development. By the American Revolutionary War, they constituted nearly a quarter of the population in the city. New York had the second largest number of enslaved Africans in the nation after Charleston, South Carolina. What? When did this fucking happened? Like, when did this change get made to the narrative? I never heard about this before. Sorry. Sorry. Did you know that New York City had the largest number of African slaves? Did you ever hear that? Didn't you hear that it was all about the South? During the Revolutionary War, New York had the second largest number of slaves.
Next to what, Texas?
Next to South Carolina.
I mean, it makes sense because that's where all the rich people were at the time.
Yeah, but that's not what we're told. We're told that the North was the refuge.
Common sense is common sense.
No, you can't
Rich
say
people
that.
want servants.
You can't say that. They sure they could have servants, but not slaves. Different.
Back in the day, that's
Servants are people who are paid to do their job. Slaves, they're property. And you heard about indentured servants and shit. But never, not once in the history of my history classes did I ever hear them talk about the big slave population of New York. Because I'm actually reading about the African Burial Ground National Monument in New York City. You heard about that, didn't you? Where as many as 15,000 Africans were buried in the middle of New York City? In the middle of downtown Manhattan?
No.
Like, this is just wild. I had no idea. Scholars and African American civil activists have joined to publicize the importance of the site and lobby for its preservation. The site was designated a National Historical Landmark in 1993 and a National Monument in 2006. Like, wasn't it all fully developed by then? What do you mean? In 2003, Congress appropriated funds for a memorial at the site and directed redesign of the federal courthouse to allow for this. The design competition attracted more than 60 proposals. The memorial was dedicated in 2007 to commemorate the role of Africans and African Americans. What's the difference? In colonial and federal New York City and the United States history. Several pieces of public art were also commissioned for the site. A visitor center opened in 2010 to provide interpretation of the site and African American history in New York City. Almost like they're creating a narrative.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to go here, but I guess I'm going here now. Pre-Revolutionary War. Slavery in New York City area was introduced by the Dutch West India Company, which, again, this is something that you should spend a whole day looking into. Because you had no idea that this thing was real. Or that... that, at the time that they say it existed, that's such an amazing... Oh, did I fucking leave that? I can't unplug. Can you bring me a lighter real quick, please? Thank you. What the fuck? Okay. By the Dutch West India Company in New Netherlands in about 1626, with the arrival of Paul de Angola, Simon Congo, Louis Guinea, Jan Guinea, thank you. Ascento Angola, and 6 other men. Those other men don't matter, though. Phone is overhearing. Sorry, I'm not talking too much. Trying to let it cool down by a fan. Totally okay, dude. 2 years after their arrival... their names denote their places of origin. Angola, the Congo, and Guinea. I mean, that's fucking stupid, right? These guys had the names of the place where they were from. Are we serious here? This is the narrative we're set to believe? They didn't have names? They didn't have fucking names? And these are the 1620s, so their names were Paul, Simon, Louis, Jan, and then Ascento. So they what? They came here as, like, and who are these? Are these slaves? Slavery was introduced by the company with the arrival of Paul, Simon, Louis. Their names, 2 years after their arrival, 3 female Angolians. Oh, I guess these are the slaves then? So the slaves had these American names. They were just giving them American names, English names. Paul and Simon and Louis. They didn't have their own names, own identities. Crazy, all crazy stuff. New to me. I love learning all this information. It truly is groundbreaking and telling. Thank you. Guy dropped a bunch of garbage and he actually got out to pick it up. They don't usually do that. Okay, so 2 years after the 2 years after their arrival, 3 female Angolan slaves arrived. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had 11 men and 3 women? That's not going to work out well. These 2 groups heralded the beginning of slavery in what would become New York City, and which would continue for 200 years. The first slave auction in the city took place in 1655 at Pearl Street and Wall Street. Then on the East River. Are they no longer on the East River? What happened with the East River? How did it change? Although the Dutch imported Africans as slaves, it was possible for some to gain freedom or half freedom during the time of Dutch rule. In 1643, Paul de Angola and his companions petitioned the Dutch West India Company for their freedom. Their request was granted. What? Okay. Resulting in their acquisition of land on which to build their own houses and farm. Why? That's backwards. By the mid-17th century, farms of free blacks covered 130 acres where Washington Square Park later appeared. It appeared there. Enslaved Africans in chattel bondage were granted certain rights and afforded protections, such as the prohibition against arbitrary physical punishment, for example, whipping. Slave being burned at the stake in New York City after the 1741 slave revolt. 13 slaves were burned. Think about what it would take to take part in that. To be the person that is like championing that. Hey, no, we shouldn't just kill these guys. We should burn them at the stake in the middle of town so everybody can see it and smell it, taste it. Doesn't that just seem incredibly psychotic? Who's gonna go watch that? Who wants to go watch somebody? I don't care how fucked up they were, but in a lot of cases, these guys weren't even fucked up. It wasn't like they were raping children. They broke some arbitrary rule. And for you to be a spectator at watching these people like screaming just to get them to the point where they're tied to the stake and you know, set up, like, how, you know, think about how badly you'd be fighting. Just, if anything, fighting in the hopes that they just kill you. They kill you instead of like the prolonged, painful, excruciating death that comes from being burnt. But you watch this person get drug in, kicking and screaming, tied up to the thing, then the thing lit on fire, and it slowly catches fire, right? It's like a fire takes, so they're just screaming and crying and pleading, and then eventually it starts getting hot, and they, you know, and it's not like they die any quickly. It's going to take them a while to die. How many of you would watch that? I would. That was a thing today. I wouldn't do it. I want to have those images in my head when I'm trying to go to sleep. The English seized New Amsterdam in 1664 and renamed it the fledgling settlement, and renamed the fledgling settlement to New York after the Duke of York. The new city administration changed the rules governing slavery in the county. At the time of the seizure, some 40% of the small population of New Amsterdam were enslaved Africans. The new rules regarding slavery were much more restrictive than those of the Dutch, and rescinded many of the former rights and protections of the enslaved residents, such as the prohibition against arbitrary physical punishment. I mean, I just think about it and like how difficult it is today to commit crime and to do crazy shit, and people still do it. Back before they had these crazy war vehicles, they had, you know, cameras everywhere and the technology that gives them the superior advantage. When everybody was basically on the same page, how the fuck were they able to do this kind of shit? How the fuck were they able to manage, you know, one family was keeping an entire group of people in bondage? I don't buy the slavery narrative. I don't think it's real. I think it's just like being the only person of color in all white school, a white privileged school, and having to sit through this part of the history lesson every year. It was always interesting to me because it always seemed like just white supremacy, and this not easy to understand. Like, you know, there's only one revolt in the history of slavery. Well, maybe this is the second one, I don't know. But there was only one that I knew, but I didn't know about northern slave history like this until today, years old. I knew about the one in the South where the group of slaves overtook their masters, and then they marched on down to the next plantation where they overtook the master there, and now the group size doubled. And of course, because, you know, they're black, they're all singing, dancing the whole time, and they know the words to the song, all the dance moves. either on the way to the third one or on the way to the fourth one. They come around the corner and the National Guard is there. The military is there. And they go, oh shit, well we sorry. And they just go back to work. A plantation is taken over. How does anybody know about it? Yet they do. They somehow put the call to the government. The government then enforces the order to mobilize, and an entire military regiment. I mean, I don't know the size of it, but entire then mobile and move to whatever area it's supposed to be. Like, I mean, and again, we're talking about the days of marching. It is, when you think about these narratives that we're given regarding history, it really doesn't make any sense. It really is kind of stupid. Because you're not supposed to ask the questions about the logistics of things. Hundreds of thousands of men marching from one place to the other, thousands of miles if, in some cases. Hundreds, over mountains and all this other shit. I mean, even take it to the recent times, right? Remember back when the Trump impeachment, one of them was scheduled to end on a Friday, or maybe it was the Blasey Ford Kavanaugh thing, I believe. It was scheduled to come to an end on a Friday. Why? Because the following Monday's news cycle was the beginning of this idea that the South Americans are invading the United States. That the Biden and Obama and them, they went down to South America and put up all these flyers telling people if they march up to the United States, they'll get the good life. That's the narrative we're given. So you then believe that thousands and thousands of people. It started off with it was like 1,000 or no. It started off when we first heard it was like 3,000. 3,000 people were marching. And I remember they sent down the half black, half Mexican chick who speaks Spanish. And she was interviewing people as they were walking. It was like part of the group. And one guy was pushing another guy in a wheelchair. And I just remember looking at their clothes. Their clothes were all clean. You know, some of these people are claiming to have walked from Venezuela and shit. And actually, that's what they said. A lot of these people were from Venezuela, from South American countries. And I guess they just rely on your stupidity. Because my immediate question is how they got across the Panama Canal. The mass grave of children they just so happened to find at the Chicago church? No, I didn't hear about it. But the logistics of it, how did they get across the Panama Canal? These people are walking, it was like August. They're walking from South America to the United States. And at the time, it was November. Was it November? Yeah, it was November. So it wasn't the summer, it was November. But it's still fucking, you're talking about the equator, it's still fucking hot. They were saying that don't worry, America, these people are a month away from being able to get here. And by the end of the week, they were saying, oh, look, they're already invading. And like, it was all just a big fucking dumbass narrative that doesn't make any sense. Where are these people sleeping? These large groups of people are just walking and then what, sleeping on the side of the road? Or, show me the videos of this. Show me the video of this large group of people walking from South America to the United States in all their different situations. When were they eating? What were they eating? Where'd they get all the water that would have been necessary? You know, it's there is no answer given for that. You're just supposed to look at the narrative they show you. You're not supposed to be asking questions. And it's the same thing with our history. You hear about these stories of these large groups of people being mobilized and marched from one place to the other. 30,000 soldiers died at Gettysburg over 3 days. Meaning 30,000, 25,000, who knows? It wasn't like Philadelphia had 30,000 soldiers. Oh, and actually, most of the 30,000 that died were Confederates, so they had to have walked up there. How did they march? And then you hear about shit like Napoleon, right? Because Napoleon is 1700s, 17, 18, whatever. You hear about these Napoleon battles and whatnot, where he had 300,000 troops. Or the story of Exodus, where they claim that 2 million Jews walked around the desert for 40 years. The wilderness. For 40 years, they were lost in the desert, walking around. How did they eat? What did they drink? Oh, the Bible says it was manna. Because at some point, somebody like me was like, how can you have millions of people walking around? Where are they getting their food and shit from? And somebody went, oh shit, well, manna, magic substance from God. Like, it's fucking stupid. It's fucking stupid. Anyway. In 1697, Trinity Church gained control of the burial grounds in the city and passed an ordinance excluding blacks from the right to be buried in churchyards. When Trinity took control of the municipal burial ground, now its northern graveyard, it barred Africans from internment within the city limits. Through much of the 18th century, the African American burying ground was beyond the northern boundary of the city, which was just beyond what is today Chambers Street. As the city population increased, so did the number of residents who held slaves. In 1703, 42% of New York's households had slaves, much more than Philadelphia and Boston combined. How? Seriously, how? 42% of the population? Most slaveholding households had only a few slaves, only a few, used primarily for domestic work. By the 1740s, 20% of the population of New York were slaves, totaling about 2,500 people. Okay. So if 2,500 people is 20% of the population, that means 10,000 people, right? Times 5. So 12,000 people. Around 12,000 people were in New York at the time. Who the fuck is building all the shit? Why are there all these multiple churches built? Like, when you start to think that it's such a few, it's so few people. And then you look at the diagrams of what cities look like or at least, I mean, there's one thing to look at what you're told and then what actually exists, where you see buildings with plaques on them and shit. And a lot of times those plaques look like they're added later, like the church that I saw the other day. But anyway, I digress. Enslaved residents also worked as skilled artisans and craftsmen. associated with shipping, construction, and other trades, as well as laborers. By 1775, New York City had the largest number of enslaved residents of any settlement in the 13 colonies except Charleston, South Carolina, and had the highest proportion of Africans to Europeans of any settlement in the northern colonies. Post-war. During the Revolutionary War, the British occupied New York City in the summer of 1776, and they maintained control of the city until the Peace of Paris was signed, and they departed on November 25th, 1783, a date which came to be known as Evacuation Day. What is the Peace of Paris? The Peace of Paris of 1783 was the set of treaties that ended the Revolutionary War. I never remember hearing about this. On September 3rd, 1783, representatives of King George III of Great Britain signed a treaty in Paris with representatives of the United States of America, commonly known as the Treaty of Paris. I mean, again, it's 1783, and representatives from the United States have traveled to Paris. Just think about the logistics of all of this travel that they used to do back then. And two treaties with Versailles, with representatives of King Louis the 16th of France and King Charles II of Spain, known as the Treaty of Versailles. The previous day, a preliminary treaty had been signed with the representatives of the States General of the Dutch Republic, but the final treaty, which ended the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War until May 20th, 1784. Convenience, however, it is included in the summaries below. The treaty dictated that the British would lose their 13 colonies and mark the end of the First British Empire. The United States gained more than it expected thanks to the award of Western Territory. France got its revenge over Britain after its defeat in the 7 Years' War and gained Tobago and Senegal, but ended up financially exhausted. It was already in financial trouble, and its borrowing to pay for the war used up all its credit and created the financial disasters that marked the 1780s. France was borrowing money, huh? And then they controlled Tobago and Senegal, where, again, you're supposed to believe that entire populations existed there and they'd lived there for long periods of time. But for some strange reason, I mean, I don't even know if muskets are available yet. But even if you're talking about a musket, you know, that shit takes like 5 minutes to load. They're not very accurate. They backfire a lot. Blah, 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 blah. They're not a very reliable weapon. So to think that these natives who have been, you know, living in this area, apparently building up mounds and all kinds of crazy shit that shouldn't really exist, but they've been hunting and you know, they're skilled with bows and all that. They can't compete with you and your handful of muskets that don't shoot very well, right? And you're supposed to believe that somehow, you know, with the powers of Christian God behind them, all these white invaders were able to overtake these native populations without any sort of trouble. And then abuse them, and then you know, sell them and just what was that? And it's just a whole narrative that pushes the idea of this white supremacy that doesn't really make any sense. How were they able to do it? And some historians link those disasters to the coming of the French Revolution when they suddenly were able to, you know, they're 300,000 men, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's fucking insane. The Spanish regained Minorca, West Florida, and East Florida from the British, but not Gibraltar. The Dutch did not gain anything of significant value at the end of the war. So, again, like, to think, like, just think about the logistics of it. That Britain would control Florida. Do you know how long it would take them? It would take them at least a month to mobilize and get, you know, get a ship from England to Florida. At least a month. And yet they're controlling this shit? How? I mean, the whole thing is just bullshit. It's all just bullshit. And all of these countries, like, what are they getting out of it? You know, who's gonna give up their shit to get this? And you know, it's just crazy. Pierre Toussaint, who was born into slavery in the French colony of Saint Domingue, now Haiti, and was emancipated in New York City. One of those rich blacks that somehow they were able to overcome. I mean, we let's go back to the N-bomb itself. I got off on this African burial ground, looking into a history that I know isn't going to be accurate to begin with, so almost like, what's the point? I do like knowing what they want us to know, but it sure is interesting. Okay, so we just got done talking about the ancient burial ground. An early occurrence of Neger in American English dates from 1625 in Rhode Island. Lexicographer Noah Webster suggested the Neger spelling in place of Negro in his 1806 dictionary. Why? I mean, just think, like, why? Who is like what is the significance there? What is the purpose of that? I'm just going to change the spelling of a word because I feel like it? That level of power, that's insane. This is Noah Webster, Webster's Dictionary. Jesus. Lyrics for the song Run and Bob Run and Bob Run. A slave escaping from a slave patrol, printed in 1851. Wow, this is a fucking long song. Jesus. Look at how long this shit is. Let's see. Is this a German song? Die Sun am Set. Oh, okay. Die Sun am Set. Dis N-bomb am free. Die colored gals he goes to see. I heard a voice cry, run, Dad, fetch you. Run, N-bomb, run, or the MP will catch you. Chorus, run, N-bomb, run, the MP will catch you. Run, N-bomb, run, turn a do-daddle-da. Turn a do-daddle-da. Spoken. Now this part's a spoken word, I guess, here. Oh, you ought to seen me dressed that day. I had a pair ob OB, I guess black people said OBD's United States Gators, hem stitched behind, made Ober at Blackwell's Island. So, literally, it's the same thing that rap is today, right? It's the exact same thing. Oh, look at my gators. Look at my shoes. Literally, I'm fucking blown away here. It's early rap music, and it's the exact same shit that black people are allowed to do today. This is fucking wild. And then I had on that pink snuff-colored coat. I mean, seriously. This is a song, look at the title. This is a popular song from the slave times, supposedly. And it's disgusting, but it's rap music. It's a black guy talking about, he's got on these fresh new gators. He's got on this pink coat that looks like it's literally the same thing.
Just without that bass.
I mean, if Cadillac was a thing, it would be in here. I wonder if Bacardi and Party is going to be in here. Breathing's hard.
If Hollywood was crafted by people, then they crafted that character from the beginning. So
That's what I'm saying. That's what's so amazing.
music made would look very much have the same undertones. In fact, that is
It's not even undertones. It's overtones. It's right there. Like, look at he's saying, look at I got these fresh gators on. They were stitched over at Blackwell's. I got this pink coat on. I looks good. I can't fucking believe this right now. If this wasn't such an extremely long song, I'd do it. It's about running from the police. Can't unsee or hear it now. And they spell it exactly how they speak it. Early flexing. I mean, this is crazy. Okay. And then I had on that green, white satin vest together with a hickory mahogany cane. With the gold, with a gold brass feller on the bottom. Oh man, how can you ever listen to rap music again the same way? And understand that the people that have been controlling the narrative have given you, like she said, the same character the entire fucking time. Oh, there wasn't room enough that day for me. I knocked the people off the sidewalk, and some of the time I got knocked off. But I got there at last and rung the bell. She opened the door this time, then hung my hat up on the floor. Hung your hat up on the floor, but it's rhyming now. I sat down by her side about an hour, telling her that I loved her, when all at once she Aweomed, she awomed, I don't know, over the chair and exclaimed, "Look there!" Says, "Where?" What? I looked over towards when I looked over towards the door, and there was a white man's face peeping through the crack of the door. At the same time, he exclaimed, "What, Mr. Bones?" "Run, N-bomb, run." I don't know what that's supposed to be. It's a weird... Okay, so now this is the part that's sung, I guess. Wide eyes erect and head hanging down, like the sprightly hair before the hound. This N-bomb streak it through the pasture. N-bomb run fast, white man run faster. I guess blacks weren't the superior athletes then yet. Back to being spoken. Well, I didn't exactly run, but I done some pretty tall walking. I went over fences, through fields, and I got drowned 4 times in the mud, and at last I got on the other side. And just as I passed the old corn crib, there was a little boy coming out from behind the crib, and he whispered in my ear and told me to... What did he tell you to do, Mr. Bones? Run, N-bomb, run. And over the fence, as slick as an eel, this N-bomb jumped all but his heel. The white man caught that fast, you see, or can't, it's crossed out. Maybe it's feet, but caught that fast, you see, and tied it tight around the tree. Caught that. I don't know. Yes, just like all N-bombs, the heel is the biggest part of the foot. And just as I jumped over the fence, he caught C-O-C-H me by the heel and held me fast and held me fast and says, "I got you now." Says I don't know about that, or I don't know about that. So he took and tied it 3 or 4 times round the tree, and then I thought I was a goner, when all at once something fell out of the top of the tree, cut off my heel, and at the same time I exclaimed, "What, Mr. Bones?" Run, N-bomb, run. This N-bomb heard that old whip crack, but never stopped for to look back. I started home as straight as a bee and left my heel tied round the tree. Are we saying he cut off his foot? Yes, there were no time to stop and look back then, case I were making about a mile, mile and a half, 2 miles, 3 miles and a half, or 4 miles to the minute. So over the fence I went, knocked in the front door, upset the cook stove, set the cook stove, spilt all the victuals over the floor, scalded the old cook to death, and knocked the old woman through the front window. Then the old man got me with a broomstick, and every jump I took, he hollered out, "What did he holler, Mr. Bones? Run, N-bomb, run." Wow. You think if black guys knew, look at that, straight edges on the cloud, whoop, whoop, point, point. Interesting. You think if your average black guy knew that this is like one of the first rap songs, do you think they would that this is what blacks have been allowed to do? I mean, I don't know if this is about blacks though. Or this is like by blacks. During the late 18th and 19th century, the word N-bomb also described an actual labor category which African American laborers adopted for themselves as a social identity. And thus, white people used the descriptor word as a distancing or derogatory epithet, as if quoting black people and their non-standard English. What? During the early 1800s to the late 1840s, fur trade in the western United States, the word was spelled Niggur and is often recorded in literature of the time. George Ruxin used it in his Mountain Man lexicon without pejorative connotation. Niggur was evidently similar to the modern use of dude or guy. Hey, nugga? Nig, oh, nig. Did they say it the same way or did it sound different? I mean, nig-ar, nig-ur, nig-ur. All these different spellings would say it differently. In 1859, the term was clearly used to offend in the attack of abolitionist John Brown. The term colored or Negro became a respectful alternative. In 1851, the Boston Vigilante Committee, an abolitionist organization, posted warnings to the, quote, colored people of Boston and vicinity. You know what's funny is I say I didn't know about the New York slave situation. But there's the whole Boston busing situation of 83, I believe, that shows you that like the whole slavery mentality, the super racist mentality, it's much stronger than you think. You had no idea. Like in 1983, 78 to 83, they were trying to integrate the school systems because they hadn't been integrated yet in New York in the fucking 1970s and shit. They weren't quite integrated. They maybe on paper they were, but they weren't. And so they had to make and so it came down to putting money into the black schools. And in order to put the money into the black schools, they had to have white kids go there. And they also had to redesign things. And so white kids that were going to all white schools, but they reassessed the fucking school zones. So people that at one time were bused to a school system, maybe it was maybe 15 miles away or whatever, but they were white, so they went to that school. That was no longer happening. And they were busing white kids to black schools and black kids to white schools to integrate things, and because of the redesignation of the lines. At the black schools, groups were formed to welcome the white kids. They were escorted around. They were made to feel as comfortable as possible. The buses that brought the black kids in, the bus route would be lined by white parents who would throw rocks and yell shit at the buses because they didn't want black kids going to school with their white kids. This was in the late 70s, early 80s in Boston. If you're from that area, your parents took part in that shit. And you never hear anybody talk about it. Never. Isn't that interesting though? Why do you think it's never talked about? There's a documentary made by PBS called Eyes on the Prize. And it was like a multi-part series. Ken Burns bullshit, he's great at what he does. And one of the episodes is about that. If you can find it, you should watch it. It's really fucking crazy. This passage from Ruxton's Life in the Far West illustrates the word in spoken form. The speaker here referring to himself. Traveler Marm, M-A-R-M. This N-I-G-G-U-R's no traveler. Is that supposed to be Marm? Marm? Howdy, Marm. I'm a trapper, Marm. A mountain man, Wah, W-A-G-H. It was not used as a term exclusively for blacks among mountain men during this period, as Indians, Mexicans, and Frenchmen, and Anglos, as Indians, Mexicans, and Frenchmen, and Anglos alike could be called a N-I-G-G-U-R. The noun slipped back and forth from derogatory to endearing. In 1959, the term was clearly used to offend in an attack on abolitionist John Brown. Oh, did we? Isn't this what it just said, or did I just mixed that up? Okay. As in, the term colored or Negro became respectfully alternative. In 1951, the Boston Vigilante, okay. Writing in 1904, journalist Clifton Johnson documented the opprobrious character of the word Nigger, emphasizing that it was chosen in the South precisely because it was more offensive than colored or Negro. By the turn of the century, colored had become sufficiently mainstream as it was chosen as the racial self-identifier for the NAACP. They just decided that. We're going to go with colored now. In 2008, Carla Sims, its communications director, said the term colored is not derogatory. The NAACP chose the word colored because it was the most positive description commonly used in 1909 when the association was founded. It's outdated and antiquated, but not offensive. I mean, you're colored. You have color to your skin. Why would that be offensive? Mark Twain, the autobiographic book Life on the Mississippi, in the autobiographic book, 1983, used the term within the quotes indicating reported speech, but used the term Negro when writing in his own narrative persona. Joseph Conrad published a novella in Britain with the title The Nigger of the Narcissist, 1897. In the US, it was released as The Children of the Sea, A Tale of the Forecastle. The original had been called The Ugliest Conceivable Title in the British Review, and American reviews understood the change as reflecting American refinement and prudery. The Nigger of Narcissus was changed to The Children of the Sea, A Tale of the Forecastle. A style guide to British English usage, H.W. Fowler's A Dictionary of Modern English Usage, states in the first edition, 1926, that applying the word Nigger to others, to quote, others than full or partial Negroes, is felt as an insult by the person described, and betrays in the speaker, if not deliberate insolence, a very ignorant inhumanity. But the second edition in 1965, wow, that's a 40-year difference, states N period has been described as the term that carries with it all the obliquity, obloqui, and contempt and rejection which whites have inflicted on blacks. See, they've made it into it, right? They're making it a bigger and bigger deal each time. You should be offended because look at how offensive this word is. I don't ever think in my life I heard anybody be like, so? You know what I mean? Like when well, what do you do when somebody calls you that word? And they said, who gives a shit what they say? If they're saying that, they're clearly at the bottom, like they're on their last bullet. Once they start breaking out words that are socially unacceptable like that, it's because they're desperate. They're just desperately trying to hurt you because you've hurt them in some way. And even if it's, some stranger on the street situation, you've hurt them, you reminded them of something, you touched on their insecurities, you did something for them to try to bring you down to their level. For you to be upset by it is just, it's exactly what they want you to do. They don't say it to you to make you not give a shit. Nothing. You said that yesterday.
What's out for real today?
Have a great day. They don't say it to make you like, their sole purpose in saying it to you is to make you upset. And so then you give them what they want by getting upset. You realize how foolish that is? And I realize, today has been a complete distraction. Not talking about the genocide, not talking about the Epstein stuff, not talking about any of that, right? But I'm addressing, a method that's used to divide us. This has to be talked about. People have to understand, like, black and white unity terrifies them. And they know if blacks and whites aren't focused on each other, that they're the next obvious progression. Like, that's what we're going to focus on. And it's the last thing they want is us fucking, us focusing on what the real problems are instead of dumb racist nonsense all the time. And so we have to explore the methods that are used against us. The weapons, these are weapons. This shit has been weaponized. It's a way of creating, revenue for them when you think about it. You call somebody the N bomb, they flip out, a fight ensues, somebody, maybe both people get hurt. Now you have to go to a J-owned hospital, your J-owned insurance, blah, 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 all that part. If there's any sort of police involved, your J-run judicial system, maybe even jail, prison system, all of that. It's all, they do nothing but benefit from us fighting each other. And creating scenarios and narratives where, again, MK Ultra shit, where you say a phrase and somebody, who normally doesn't commit crime is doing everything they can to commit a crime, to commit an assault. Talk about your perfect weapon, man. And so we have to understand, like, these origins, how this weapon came to be, and truly take away its ability to affect things. If somebody is reaching that bottom of the barrel, you're winning. You have them shook. There's a reason why they're not addressing you on some other level. Some other level. The quoted formula goes back to the writings of the African journalist Harold R. Isaacs, who used it in several writings between 1963 and 75. Black characters in Nella Larson's 1929 novel Passing view it as offensive. One says, "I'm really not such an idiot that I don't realize that if a man calls me N-bomb, it's his fault the first time, but mine if he has the opportunity to do it again." There you go. See? Programming you to commit crimes. It's his fault the first time he says it, but my fault because I didn't beat him into the ground if he does it again. Do you realize that? If he has the opportunity to do it again, meaning you have essentially silenced this person. If somebody has the ability to speak, they have the ability to say it. So are you talking about preventing them from ever speaking again? By the late 60s, the social change brought about by the civil rights movement had legitimized the racial identity word black as mainstream American English usage to denote black-skinned Americans or African ancestry. President Thomas Jefferson had used this word for his slaves in his Notes on the State of Virginia, 1785, but black had not been widely used until the late 20th century. See Black Pride in the context of worldwide anti-colonialism narratives. Negritude. In the 1980s, the term African American was advanced analogously through such terms as German American and Irish American, and was adopted by major media outlets. Moreover, as a compound word, African American resembles the vogue word Afro-American in early 1970s popular usage. Some black Americans continue to use the word Nigger, often spelled as nigga, and Nigga and Niggah, with irony, either to neutralize the word's impact or as a sign of solidarity. Related words, derivatives. Never knew this. In several English-speaking countries, Niggerhead, or spelled two words, was used as a name for many sorts of things, including commercial products, places, plants, and animals, as a descriptive term. a black person's head. It also is or was a colloquial, oh jeez, I hate that word, colloquial term in the industry, mining and seafaring, Nigger, as defect, a hidden problem, derives from the Nigger in the woodpile, a U.S. slave era phrase denoting escaped slaves hiding in train transported woodpiles. In the 1840s, the Morning Chronicle newspaper report series London Labor and the London Poor by Henry Mayhew records the uses of both Nigger and the similar sounding Niggard, denoting a false bottom for a grate. In American English, Nigger, lover, initially applied to abolitionists, then to white people sympathetic towards black Americans. The portmanteau word wigger, portmanteau, blend word. In linguistics, a blend, also known as a blend word, lexical blend, or portmanteau, is a word formed by combining the meanings and parts of the sounds of two or more words together. English examples include smog, coined by blending smoke and fog, and motel, from motorist and hotel. Origin of the term portmanteau. The word portmanteau was introduced in the sense by Lewis Carroll in the book Through the Looking Glass, where Humpty Dumpty explains to Alice the joinage of unusual words used as Jabberwocky. Slithy means slimy and lithe, and mismy means miserable and flimsy. Humpty Dumpty explains to Alice the practice of combining words in various ways, comparing it to the then common type of language which opens into two equal parts. You see, it's like portmanteau. There are two meanings packed up into one word. In this introduction in 1876 poem, The Hunting of the Shark, Carroll again used portmanteau when describing lexical selection. Humpty Dumpty's theory of two meanings packed into one word like a portmanteau seems to me the right explanation for all. For instance, taking the two words fuming and furious. Make up your mind that you will say both words, but leaving it unsettled which you will say first. If you have the rarest of gifts, a perfectly balanced mind, you will say frumulous or fumious. That is goofy. Okay, the word wigger, white, and I remember, so I always have to tell this story. So, one time, like, when I was a kid, we would go N-bomb knocking, which was ding dong ditch, but that's what all the kids called it when I was growing up, in the neighborhood I was growing up. And I grew up in this extremely diverse apartment complex. Like it was such a crazy place to grow up, but it was great because there was Arabs and Indians and blacks and whites and no Jews, but there was all kinds of people in there, and I never thought anything of it. Like, that was, let's go. That was something we'd be outside being bored and being like, what you want to do? Hey, let's go N-bomb knocking. And I'd say it, but again, stupid people here get upset, get offended by it. But that's what we called knocking on doors and running back then. I didn't think anything of it. And so one day I'm talking to my dad, maybe 12, I don't know. And I'm telling him about this, I'm like, yeah, this wigger guy. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, this wigger guy. And he looked at me and he was like, actually, I don't think, He said, what? And I said, this wigger. And I just like, I real like he's looking at me and I'm like, oh shit. He said, what do you think that word means? And I was like, I instantly was like, oh. Like, it's amazing how commonplace it was for everybody to say it, not realizing what you were saying. We all said it. Everybody said wigger at some point in their life. You, if you're from my generation or, you know, a generation or two younger and then way later, you've said that shit. Denotes a white person emulating street black behavior, hoping to gain acceptance to the hip-hop, thug, and gangsta subcultures. Norman Mailer wrote of the ascendance of this phenomenon in his 1957 in his essay The White Negro. I had no idea wigger was that old, I think. In Ukraine, the word zigger, Z-I-G-G-E-R, is sometimes used as a derogatory term by Ukrainians to refer to Russian soldiers and those who follow the Russian government's propaganda. Gee, isn't that weird how we just happen to get a Ukraine reference? The word comes from replacing the first letter of N-I-G-G-E-R with a Z, no shit, which is a reference to the Z tactical symbol used by Russian troops and Russian nationalists. It is used more often as a more offensive alternative to calling someone a vatnik. Vatnik. You vatniks. It's a political pejorative used in Russia and other post-Soviet states for steadfast jingoistic followers of propaganda from the Russian government. The N-word euphemism. The prosecutor, Chris Darden, his voice trembling, added that the N-word was so vile he would not utter it. It's the filthiest, dirtiest, nastiest word in the English language. He said that to a bunch of Jays. They were probably like, yeah, right. One of the first uses of the word N-word euphemism by a major public figure came during the racially contentious O.J. Simpson murder case in 1995. Key prosecution witness, Direct Detective Mark Furman of the Los Angeles Police Department, who denied using racist language on duty, impeached himself with his prolific use of the word N-bomb in tape recordings about his police work. Co-prosecutor Christopher Darden refused to say the actual word, calling it the filthy. Yeah, we got that. Media personnel who reported on Furman's testimony substituted the N-word for N-I-G-G-R. Similar sounding words. Niger occurs in Latinate scientific nomenclature and is the root for the homophones of N-I-G-G-E-R. Sellers of Niger seed used as bird feed. I think it's Niger. I mean, I don't know if you say it the same way. Sometimes use the spelling N-Y. Oh, yeah. So N-Y-G-E-R seed. There you go. Or N-Y-J-E-R. Niger. The classical Latin pronunciation, Niger, sounds similar to the English N-I weird G with an upside down ER, occurring in biologic and etonymic names such as Hyoscyamus niger, black henbane, and even for animals that are not in fact black, such as Sciurus niger, fox squirrel. Nigra is the Latin feminine form of Niger, black, Nigra, I guess, used in biologic and anatomic names such as black substance, substantia nigra. How is that feminine? I don't understand how words are male and feminine, masculine and feminine. The word niggardly, misery, is etymologically unrelated to Niger, derived from the Old Norse word nig, stingy, and the Middle English word nigon, Nigon. In the U.S., this word has been misinterpreted as related to nigger and taken as offensive. Niggardly? Niggardly? Never heard anyone say that. In January 1999, David Howard, a white Washington, D.C. city employee, was compelled to resign after using niggardly in a financial context while speaking with black colleagues who took umbrage. Miserly. It means miserly. I mean, are you going to get like one of my kids' books? This one about the goblins. They talked about, they used the word sniggered. He sniggered at something. And it means the same thing as snickered. So it makes you wonder, like, why is there another word that means the same thing that's spelled a little differently? But that's what it was. After reviewing the misunderstanding, Mayor Anthony A. Williams offered to reinstate Howard to his former position. Howard refused reinstatement but took a job elsewhere in the mayor's government. Negro is the Spanish word for black, or negro. Wow, that's a weird letter. It's negro. It's N-E period a Y, but the bottom part is looped around, and then there's like a little tiny T, capital T underneath it, and then the R for in the row is weird shape, but okay, and is commonly a part of place names and proper names, particularly in the southwest of the United States. What? The denotations of NIGGER also include non-black, non-white, and other disadvantaged people. Some of these terms are self-chosen to identify with the oppression and resistance of black Americans. Others are ethnic slurs used by outsiders. Jerry Farber's 1967 essay collection, The Student of NIGGER, used the word as a metaphor for what he saw as a role forced on students. Farber had been, at a time, frequently arrested as a civil rights activist while beginning his career as a literature professor. In his 1968 autobiography, White N-Bombs of America, the precocious autobiography of a Quebec, quote, terrorist, Pierre Villiers, I don't know, a Front de Liberation de Quebec leader, refers to the oppression of the Quebecois people in North America. In 1969, in the course of being interviewed by the British magazine Nova, artist Yoko Ono said, "Women is the N-bomb of the world." 3 years later, her husband John Lennon published a song of the same name about the worldwide phenomenon of discrimination against women, which was solely and politically controversial to U.S. sensibilities. I mean, that's a brilliant name for a song. You got to give it to him on that. That's going to get people upset. Sand N-bomb, an ethnic slur against Arabs, and timber N-bomb and prairie N-bomb, ethnic slurs against Native Americans, are examples of the racist extension of NIGGER upon other non-white people by white people, and prolificated by the Jays who ran the media. I mean, they always have. People don't just pick up on these words like that, they read about them. In 1978, Patti Smith used the word in Rock and Roll N-Bomb. 1 year later, in 1979, English singer Elvis Costello used the phrase white N-Bomb in his song Oliver's Army. The slur usually remains uncensored on radio stations. Because why? But Costello's usage of the word came under scrutiny, particularly after he used racial slurs during a drunken argument with Stephen Stills and Bonnie Bramblett in 1979. In the same year, Costello's father published a letter in Rolling Stone defending his son against accusations of racism, stating, "Nothing could be further from the truth. My own background has meant that I am passionately opposed to any form of prejudice based on race or religion." Oh, religion or race, he says. His mother comes from the tough multiracial area of Liverpool, and I think she would still beat the tar out of him if his orthodoxy were ever in doubt. Again, are we acknowledging the J aspect of things? Historian Eugene Genovese, noted for bringing a Marxist perspective to the study of power, class, and relations between planters and slaves in the South, used the word poignantly in The World the Slaveholders Made, 1988. For reasons common to the slave condition, all slave classes displayed a lack of industrial initiative and produced the famous lazy N-bomb, who under Russian serfdom and elsewhere was white. Just as not all blacks, even under the most degrading forms of slavery, consented to becoming N-bombs, so by no means all or even most of the N-bombs in history have been black. That's crazy. The editor of Green Egg, a magazine described in the Encyclopedia of American Religions as a significant periodical, published an essay titled N-Bombs of the New Age. This argued that neo-pagans were treated badly by other parts of the New Age movement. I don't give a shit. I really don't give a shit. The rest is goofy. So we learned something today. We learned yet and again how another piece of this is being used against us. This is what they do. They weaponize words, they ideas, and just the whole idea of like culture and division. They weaponize that, and they create like the whole "I'm a strong black woman" thing. Oh, it's so awful. It's so awful. But it's in response to what was put on them the whole time. Like black women have just been so mistreated in the United States. It's really just, it's disgusting. But it's all about creating that division. There are so many white people out there who get so uncomfortable with slavery, with racism. They don't like when their friends do it. But at the same time, they don't want to be, if they're in a group of people and somebody's dropping them, and they don't want to be the odd one out, especially if they're not tough, which most people aren't. Because we all know how violent white people can be when you challenge them. But this is literally like, this is such a great example of what's happening right now. There's a genocide happening right now because we've been taught to separate ourselves from each other using these words, these identities, all this shit. It's all used against us so that we continue to not see them, the one group of people who absolutely sees themselves as separate and superior. And we don't see them for who they are and how they're creating all the chaos, all the negatives, everything that we all say we hate is their creation. And we need to finally unify and fight against it. It's just what it is. It's time for us to no longer be the dumb goyim they need us to be. We need to be that unified one goyim that they see us as, but we don't. Sure, we have a bunch of differences, and those differences are fantastic. That's what separates us and unifies us, is that we can learn from and enjoy each other's cultures and differences and whatnot, but not discriminate against each other in the process. How many black comedians like D.L. Hughley made their entire career on, oh, this is what white guys do and this is what black guys do? That's why they were allowed to succeed. That's why they were allowed to excel. D.L. Hughley's not funny at all. Guys like Patrice, who were among the funniest of all time, who actually had the balls to even talk about the Jays, well, he's not with us anymore. And one of those sudden, like, pneumonia deaths that make no sense. But anyway, I'm going to go. The links are in the description. Free download, www.bilderberg.group.com. A link to Hollywoodism, the most important film ever made, and the film that explains exactly what I'm talking about. And 3 links to our Facebook page, where you can see 3 of our music videos: Donald Trump Hates America, COVID Sauce, and the newest one, Sleight of Hand Job. Yeah, Matt, thanks for being here as always. Hope your phone gets better. Isn't it funny? Look at how low the numbers have been today, especially in the videos where I'm acknowledging that this is what we're talking about. Interesting. Says a lot. Anyway, you guys have a great day. And as always, most importantly, you pedophiles, kill your fucking selves. Just kill it, dude. Kill it. Do one good thing in your life. All right, man. My charger's being funny today, too. Weird. Anyway, you guys be good. Have a great day. Pedophiles, kill yourself.